All right, we're going to make some Texas jewelry boxes. Well, we're going to make one, and I'm going to show you the finished product here before we start. These can be made in the shape of really any state or any country for that matter. The nice thing about it is they take a small amount of wood, so you can buy nice wood. I buy a lot of South American and African wood. These two happen to be Brazilian rosewood on the left. There's nothing joined together there. That's from one piece of wood. And then this one here is South American marble wood. The body of the box is a hardwood, any kind of hardwood. This happens to be oak. And then when you open the box, the inside is flocked, which is a nice velvety, smooth feel. Very easy to do, and we'll show you that process too. Inside of the box, inside of the lid, is what I call a locator, which is just a cutout that we'll show you how we make those. And it's in the shape of the inside of the box, so that when you locate the lid on it, it's a nice fit, hopefully without too much play if you've done everything right. And you can put a logo on it, a piece of jewelry. A lot of the Texas boxes, we put stars, various stars on them. You can get all these items from any kind of jewelry supply, motorcycle accessories, and things like that. You find all that stuff on eBay. So we're going to take you through the process. I'll show you various shortcuts that I've come up with to do this. This is all bandsaw work. Just about everything except for some of the sanding is done on the bandsaw, and I suppose you could do the sanding on the bandsaw if you wanted to get the right piece of equipment for that. Never have done that. We'll use a spindle sander on the inside, and then I'll show you the finishing, how I finish these. These are all finished with friction polish, so the minute you finish the job, the box, you can go right to your polish station and put a few coats on there, and I'll show you how I do that also. So you finish everything at one go here without having to spray and wait for it to dry and hope you don't get runs and all that. Plus these finishes, these hard wax finishes, are more natural, I think, less synthetic and commercial looking. So let's head over to the shop. This is my shop over here, and we'll head in there and I'll show you what goes on in there. All right, well, this is phase one here. This is just setup, getting your materials. You can get your shapes for a particular state or country, something like that, online. Just do a search, an image search, and you'll get something you can print out. Spray adhesive, glue it on a piece of wood, and you can cut it out. If you're going to make a lot of them, like I've been doing, because they just seem to be really popular, people really like them, you just cut something out like this out of some particle board or Luan or something like that. I painted them different colors, so I've got different sizes, and I just take the one that fits on the material that I have. This one's going to be a little small, so I'll take this one, and you usually have to, you know, turn it around, locate it a certain way to maximize your use of wood. There you go, and that'll be your surface. So you're going to have 3 pieces of wood, and it's going to be your surface. That's going to be your lid. Then the body, which should be about 5/4 thick, something like that. Too thick just doesn't look good. This happens to be quarter sawn oak, some nice figuring on it, which isn't going to help you much with this, but it does look nice. And this also is going to produce your locator, and then this is your bottom. It can be just about anything, you know, Luan, plywood, thin plywood. I think this happens to be poplar, which is pretty nice. Here's some other woods that I've gotten in that I'm going to probably make some smaller boxes out of. This is yellow heart, leopard wood, and mora. I like cocobolo. I like marble wood, rosewoods, and things like that. Just the nicer the wood, the better the box is going to be, and you can buy some nice wood because you're not using a lot of wood. So what we're going to do is we're going to secure these 3 pieces of wood together with carpet tape, 2-sided tape. And then we're going to take our shape and put it on there and cut it out. And actually, first, before we cut it out, of course, we're going to draw it in. Then we're going to take this sandwich, 3 pieces together with your shape drawn on it, to the bandsaw. And that's going to be the first bit of actual woodworking, sawing. It's going to be on the bandsaw. All right, we've got our little sandwich here. This is going to be the back. Actually had to replace that because it broke on the chop saw trying to trim it up. So this is going to be the front, and this is where we want to try to find the nicest grain and the best fit. This is pretty straightforward here. So you're going to take a pen. I like something with a little fatter tip on it. It just makes it a little easier on the bandsaw. And you just hold this down and trace it out. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you want to get your shape so it looks authentic. Make sure you're not moving. And there you go. So there's what we're going to be cutting out, and when we do, we'll have our lid, we'll have the shape of our body, and we'll have the shape of the bottom, all from one cut. So that's going to save some trouble. Now we're going to go over to the bandsaw. Alright, we're going to do this without the dust collector on because of the noise. We're all adjusted here. We've got a 3/16 blade which has been tensioned properly. This is a nice little device that I've got here. I think it's by Carter, I'm not sure, but it just saves using the other adjusting devices that normally come with a bandsaw. I kind of like it. We'll put the name of it up in a little while on the video. 3/16 blade. We've kind of honed the back of it a little bit with a stone. It's lubricated, so we're all set to go. That honing the back helps you to back out of situations which we try to avoid. Here we go. Tricky spot here. You don't get it just right, you've got a real challenge to get your saw marks out when you're sanding. So we want those perpendicular cuts to meet very nicely if possible. We want this perpendicular cut to meet this one here without going into the body from either direction. Bail out here so that I can come in and make some tension relieving cuts here, which will help me, even though I could make that turn. Just trying to make it easier on myself. Got a little box there that catches my scraps. Tight turn here, so I'll bail out. I'm close to the edge and I'll come at it again. down the Red River. Hang on. Hope you don't get wet. Don't want to try to negotiate that 90, so I'll back out, speed a little bit, catch my line, up like this, there you go. And now I'll come down and meet that 90 without overcutting. And there you go. That only took a couple of minutes, maybe a little more. Now we're just going to pry these sections apart because we just have one short piece. A couple inches is all you need of the two-sided tape, carpet tape, and that'll hold it together. So there's what the lid's going to look like. Very natural, very nice grain. And there's the back, nondescript, glue-on probably. And there's your side of the body, which is 5/4 oak. Good shaped box. It'll hold a bunch. And now we'll take it apart and then we'll do some cutting on the inside. Okay, now we've got our three pieces all separated, and the nice thing about this is they're all uniform because they've been cut all at one time. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take the lid off and we're going to take the bottom off, and we're going to concern ourselves with the body here. And here's what we're going to do to get our wall thickness. We're going to take a marker. Again, I like a slightly heavy marker, and you're going to use your index finger here, well, your thumb I suppose is better, and you're going to mark a line using your fingernail as a distance gauge, and you're going to come all the way around here, leaving yourselves about 3/8 of an inch. I'm leaving a little too little there, so I'm going to come on the inside of this line when I cut. Don't have to exactly connect all those lines. There we go. So now we have what the wall of the box is going to look like. You see there. And now we're going to cut into that on the bandsaw, and I'll show you how you do that. I'll show you how you get inside that shape on the bandsaw. And this is going to be two different steps with some gluing and drying time in between. Let's go back to the bandsaw. Okay, now we're going to cut into the box, and I'll show you the place where I like to cut in. I like to start right here, and I'm going to follow this line. I'm going to cut from the outside. I'm going to follow in here like so, and I'm going to come up here. I'm going to turn right here along the Red River. I'm going to come up here. Here, I'm not going to try to be 100% faithful because of the 90s, and I don't want to make it any more difficult than I have to. So I can put a radius there. I'm going to come down here, make my turn here. Again, not trying to be 100% faithful to the 90, but just a nice smooth radius. And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to stop right there. Shut the saw down, back the blade out like that, and then you'll see where we go from there. Start a little bit earlier than you think you ought to here. same on this radius. Don't go too thin here. Very easy to do that. Make your radius here. Okay to go off the line a little bit right there. And stop. Shut the saw down. Raise it up a little bit. And now this is where the taper that we put on the back of the saw blade, microscopic little taper with the stone, sharpening stone, pays off because you're going backward now. When you get to here, you can open it up a little bit and give me back my Texas. There we go. All right. So now we're cut from here to here. Okay? All the way down from Galveston to the top of the panhandle. All right? And we made that trip in about a minute, pretty fast. So now what we're going to do is glue this up right here and let it sit, and then we'll come in another place here and we'll finish up our cut like so as soon as that's reasonably dry. What we've done here is we've glued just the end of this piece here with this piece here, and we've put a piece of wax paper in there, made sure that that glue's gotten in there, and we'll wipe off the excess, and then I'll try a clamp, but very often because of the irregular shapes the clamp doesn't do you that much good. This might work here. Yeah, we're seeing that glue come out. So this time the clamp is working. If not, these rubber bands do nicely there, or even 2 or 3 of these. Just put them on there and double them up, triple them up, and that'll put that together. So we'll let that sit a little longer today. Here in North Texas in January, it's not hot for sure, so we'll let that sit for maybe an hour or more to be sure. On a hot day, that'll be good to go in 10 to 20 minutes sometimes. There's a difference between the glue being bonded and then really getting into the pores on both surfaces and becoming one and holding together. That takes a little longer. So this wood is 5/4 thick. We'll just let it sit for 2-3 hours or so, and then we'll be good to go on that other cut. All right, now we're going to see how that first glue up did. Looks pretty good. And now we're going to go back to the table saw and do our second cut to knock the center free. Now the center is knocked free, and we just have to glue our second cut there. Okay, so we'll take that wax paper off of there. So now we'll put a little bead of glue right here. Not much. There. Set that on there to connect. And a little extra tension maybe, and make sure that we're flush here where the two freshly cut pieces come together. And there we go. So we'll wait on that to dry, and then we have basically the box body done, pending some sanding. And then in the next stage, what we'll do is we will cut a slice off of there on the bandsaw. Since this is a perfect fit inside there, about a 1/4 inch or so, maybe a little less, 1/8 inch slice right there will make a perfectly sized locator to locate on the inside of this. So we'll have a slightly smaller outline of the state of Texas here, cut from this piece. Visualize this, only about 1/5 of the size, and then that'll be our locator that goes on the cover. Then we'll glue this on there, the bottom, and then we'll work on some sanding, and then the flocking, and then the finishing, and that's about it. So moving right along here. Alright, now we're going to cut our locator, and what I've done is to draw a line here, much like we did on the box shape itself. So we're going to use this little pivot cylinder here, which is not the best way to resaw because it's kind of reactive. You know, you're just reacting to the drift. The best way is to put a fence up, and we've made a fence attachment for this, but when you do, you have to correct and adjust your fence for drift, and there's a whole process to establishing the drift, you know, which I've done in the past and probably no longer accurate. I'd have to redo it again. So we're going to just make our cut here as kind of a little mini sawmill, and we're going to slice a piece off of that. The key, one of the keys is to go slowly. Very, very slowly. I like these gloves because they're cut-proof, puncture-proof gloves. A bandsaw is a very safe saw, but it's still a good idea to be cautious. Alright, so here we go. Working very, very slowly, watching my line, ready to pivot, whenever I need to. There, I'm turning a little bit to my left to get my slice off there. laid my world key on them. And there we go. So there is our locator. There's our locator. Pretty uniform. And we'll see exactly how it fits on there. Okay, now we're going to affix the locator, which we sliced off the inside portion of our body, and we're going to locate that on the inside of the lid so that it fits and locates itself properly on the top of the box. Alright, so how do we do that? Well, there's a little method. Well, we came unglued here. Okay, now hopefully our box body has had the glue set up, and our two cuts, one was here as we went up this side, then the other was here as we went up and connected over here. Then we took the interior of this, what came out of here, and sliced a piece off it. Sanded it a little bit on each side. Tried to make sure that it was somewhat uniformly thick like that. And now what we want to do is we want to glue it to the inside of this as a locator that will locate that lid inside this, because again, this is a perfect fit inside there. So how do we do that? Well, we do it like this. We put this approximately where we're going to want it. We secure it in place with the box. Check our fit. Doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be sanding going on. And then we look to see about where it is. There we go. Now we're going to take it off. We're going to put some glue on the inside. Make sure it's fairly even. Right up to the edge, but not too thick. We don't want a whole bunch of squeeze out, but we don't want it too thin either, bearing in mind that this is going into the pores of the wood, so we always want a little bit more than what we need to cover. There we go. Alright. Now, this goes back approximately where we had it before, and then we're going to locate it more accurately with the box body like this. Okay, now you're going to think, well, alright, I'll glue it right in there. That's not going to be good because the squeeze out might wind up gluing this locator to the body. So we're going to hold it down, pick it up like that, and now we want to glue that exactly where it is. It's in the right place. Here's how we're going to do that. We're just going to come over to our vise, being very careful to not let this slip. I always like to put a piece of wax paper in there to protect the threads inside the vise like that. So we're going to put that down in there. Doesn't have to be all the way down. And we're going to clamp it. That's clamped. Then we're going to take a couple of small clamps and we're going to clamp where our vise didn't reach. There we go. One there. And probably one here, and that'll be sufficient. Probably not a bad idea to get the glue out. I usually do that with a piece of paper towel and a sharp pencil. Something like this. There. Now we can't get down and do the rest, but that's okay. We'll be able to cut that out. Now what we can do is we can glue the bottom to the box bottom. So there's the box with the bottom on it, not yet glued, and this is ready to receive the lid with the locator. So what we're going to do, we've got our marks on there. Doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter, because we're going to be gluing it like that, but we'll sand these marks, these pen marks off later. So for right now, keep checking to make sure that you're not doing this backwards. Keep orienting yourself so that you have it in the glue up process the way it's going to look, and you don't have a mirror image, which would not be good. Alright, so now we want the glue on this line, so we're going to put a thin bead here. Helps to have a good glue bottle with a small neck. There we go. And I'll give that a little brushing there. Here, the squeeze out doesn't matter, and you'll see why later. So there we go. That is on there. And if you have another vise, you can put it in that vise. You want it glued down, or you can use some small clamps, and then in a few hours the top and the bottom and the body will be at the stage that you want, and from then on it's just sanding and finishing. And there we go, gluing the bottom onto the box. There's the pen handle, top of the state of Texas, and this is in a Z vise with a handful of small clamps holding it together, and then when this comes off, it'll be ready to put together. Don't have to worry about this squeeze out here, right in here, because that all gets sanded. So this is awaiting the glue to dry, as is the lid with the locator on the other side. It takes a lot of clamps to do this. You can't have too many clamps. I've got a couple of clamp racks here for the smaller clamps that I use, and then the rest are just kind of here and there around the shop. And here's a better look at my bandsaw. This is a Rikon saw, very nice saw. 14-inch. This is a model 10325, and I like it. Once you get a bandsaw, if you've never had one, it may well become your favorite piece of equipment. Everybody says table saw is the central piece of equipment in a wood shop. People who have gotten to like bandsaws may take exception to that statement. Of course, nice to have both. And then when we're done with this and we start the finishing and we've done all the trimming, then we'll go over to the spindle sander, and then we'll do our finishing on a 3-wheel buffing device, which is mounted on the lathe, and we'll see that when we finish up. Alright, we've got our two halves, the box, which now has the bottom glued on, and it's hollow, ready for flocking, almost. And now we've taken this off the vise as well. This is the lid, And again, you want to choose the nicest wood you can find for the lid. This is native. It's going to have a nice grain. Something from Texas, looks like probably mesquite. Locator is glued on there, and we've got a good fit. No movement there, and yet you don't have to fight to get it off. Now, our next step is to smooth all this out. Just make this edge here common to the top, the body, and the bottom. If you're way off, like let's say 1/8 of an inch for a couple of inches, you can go back to the bandsaw. I've never done this, but you can use a flush trim router bit on this, because the bearing and the blade are at the same location, the same distance out from the shaft. So you just kind of set your router for over half this way, and then flip your box over and then do the bottom. Now, I've never done this, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. So now we're going to go to the spindle sander, and we're definitely getting there. We've probably got another 30-45 minutes to go on this, and it'll be done. Alright, now we are coming to the spindle sander, and you're going to have your choice of various spindles, diameter, grit. I'm going to start with about a 1 inch here, and it's fairly coarse. I don't know what it is, maybe 80, something like that. And that's to get us down to a very, very close tolerance here. This is right off the spindle sander, and you can kind of see, hopefully, that we're nice and smooth in there. Not 100%. Still got some saw marks here from the bandsaw. We'll get those off. So where we go from here, generally, you could either just keep going to a finer grit on the spindle sander. And by the way, if you don't have a spindle sander, then you can use one of these drill bit attachments here. It's just a little sleeve that goes over a rubber piece. It tightens down, expands, and this just chucks onto a drill press, or a handheld drill for that matter, I suppose. I'd probably want to put the drill in the vise, pat it and put it in the vise, but this will work also. Now we're going to start with 220 grit paper, and we're going to just touch this up a little bit. to 320, could go to 400. Alright, still got some saw marks that the 220 didn't get, so we'll probably go 120, get the saw marks off, and then we are pretty much ready to finish this inside and out. So we'll sand this, and then we'll take this to the next step. I'm probably going to touch this top up with 600. You can go to 1,000. You can go crazy and wet sand too, and that's okay. What I thought I would do on this is just put a round over on it on the router table. This is maybe I don't know, a ½ inch or so, but I've got it drawn way down, so we're barely going to round that edge over. I was not able to find the this piece here that flew off on the router table, but I was able to find the piece that the lid at the top was sawn from, and so I patched together a little piece in there with some flat surfaces and some good glue. I use Type Bond 3, and then just for safekeeping, I don't know if you can see it, but there are 3 little pegs here that I drilled into there to go through and into the rest of the box. I use little wooden bamboo food skewers for that occasionally. It works real well. Small dowel will work fine too. So now what we're going to do is just touch this up a little bit, fill it in rather, and we're going to do that with some sawdust, very fine sawdust that came from around the bandsaw or the sander where the piece was cut, so hopefully it'll match. Kind of powdered wood is what it is. And we're going to shoot a little glue in there, like so. Mix it up. This is a good way to make some patch, some filler, some adhesive. I never buy that stuff. It's just too easy to make out of sawdust and wood glue. So here we go, and we're just going to fill that in. Just pile it on there because it's all getting sanded down. And of course, normally this is a step you don't want to have to take, but if you have to, you have to. Let's come down on the side there and fill that in. Alright, let it dry for probably an hour or so. Should be about all it takes. But you can see the box is coming along nicely. Alright, our box is pretty well sanded. This is all very flush and smooth. Could use a little bit more. Get some of the saw marks out, but we can do that later. Now we're going to flock the inside. So we take the lid off, and what we've done is just shot a little thin layer of clear enamel or lacquer or something like that in there, just to close up the pores before we flock. Alright, this is an important item here. This is a red acrylic paint, quick drying acrylic paint. Don't go to great lengths to get this. This is just available on the shelf at Walmart, and craft stores and things like that. You don't have to pay over about $3.95 for it. So we start out, give yourself a good shot of this right in the middle. Maybe it's frozen. There we go. Okay. It's okay if you got too much or too little. You can work with any of that. There's your glob, and now just start painting the bottom. Make sure you get all the way to the edges. Come up about half or 2/3 of the way on the edges. Before you're done, you're going to want to eliminate ridges. Does not have to be pretty. Actually, nobody's going to see this. Alright, there's the easy part. Now here's the slightly trickier part. The slightly trickier part is to come straight up like this all the way around the edge and get even, smooth coverage without overlapping onto the flat surface, which is the top of your box. Not hard to do. Not saying you're going to get it right the first time, but not hard to do. And if you get some on the top, not hard to get off. So, and again, the bottom does not have to be perfect, nor do the sides. You just want to try to get it to where it's not too thin, not too thick. And you can see it's fairly easy. If you have several of these boxes to do them one at a time. By that I mean paint and then flock and then paint your other box. The reason for that is, as you'll see, you don't want the paint to dry. So we're good. Again, this wouldn't pass at all if this were to be a finish, but it's not, and you'll see what the finish is going to be. Alright, so now we're going to take some wax paper, nice big piece of wax paper, and we're going to set our freshly painted box in the middle of the wax paper. And then we've got flocking material, red flocking material, which is just a powder. It's like powdered felt. And I like this flocker right here. This is called a mini flocker. It pumps up and down. It's got holes in the top like a Parmesan cheese container. And it's real simple. You just pump it in there. And again, it's kind of hard to go wrong here. Better to have too much than too little. Get it good and thick. Make your ridges disappear. And there you go. A little extra. And then what I like to do is I like to shake it all out toward the bottom and then spin it like this so I'm getting good coverage in that edge there. But we've already got it. So, alright, now don't touch this now. This is in a delicate condition right now. If you touch it with anything, you're going to have a fingerprint and you're going to have to fix that. So now this gets to dry for a few hours, and then we'll start on the finish. Sometimes I'll do the finish on the edge of the box before I flock. because this is, as I said, a little delicate. Even after it dries, it's a little bit delicate. But you can see what we're going to have here. When this is all finished and you open it up, it's very pretty red felt on the inside, and that's what you want. Of course, other colors are available too, about any color you want. You just want to make sure your paint matches your flocking material. Alright, so it's cold in the shop today here in North Texas. Going to take this inside so it dries a little bit better, and then we'll come back and finish this when this is all dry. Alright, now we have our top here, the lid, locators on it. This piece that we've patched in is just not terribly visible, and the grain is nice. So now we're going to go on to our 3-wheel buffing station, and we have 3 different compounds here that we use. This rougher compound, dark red on the first wheel, white compound, and then the other compound, which is carnauba wax, I think, on the 3rd wheel. So we'll load up the wheels and get this buffed out. There's the contrast. This is very, very smooth, like a car finish. This is smooth, but big difference. So we'll keep going here. Hang on to this. With the grain. Slow it down just a little bit. Get a little more flex out of that wheel when you slow it down, which we need here. Alright, a little more carnauba. And you can keep going here on this 3rd wheel to your heart's content. And you can really come up with some nice finishes. Very, very smooth. I mean, like a piano. back up a little bit for a little more heat. Seeing a nice shine on this. And we're good. Pretty nice shine. That's natural light there coming in from the window. And now this is done. This is hard to the touch. There's no drying. There's no need to have to go this route, you know, and then spray and wait for it to dry and wet sand it and wait for it to dry again. These friction polishes, I think, work just great. Just great. I suppose if you don't have a lathe, you could maybe set something up on a drill press or make your own lathe out of a drill or something, but looking good, man. All right, now we're going to put a Texas star in the middle of this. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of an assortment there, different kinds. Just kind of keep an eye for them. Shop around on eBay. You'll find a lot of these. And this is the one that I'm going to use. It's kind of rustic. It's a Texas star, and it's maybe an upholstery tack or something with a nail on the back. So we're going to measure this to see if it's going to come through there, and it is. So we're going to trim it, and I'm going to trim it about 1/4 inch off it, and I'm going to trim it at an angle. Okay, and then I've marked my hole where I want this star. This is going to someone in Austin, so this is about where Austin is, right there. And I've drilled the hole just slightly smaller than the nail. And I'll show you a little trick for setting those. We'll come over to the vise here. Here we go. And you're going to want to set that star to where the point, if you're using a star, where the point is up like that. Okay. And then I'm going to put it in the vise. Like so. And then just clamp it down. Look in there to make sure it's nice and flush. And get it a little snug. And that's tight. Now you can see it moved. So what we'll do is get a pair of needle nose pliers, like so, and try to move that. Nope, it doesn't want to move. Anyway, we'll find a way to move it, hopefully without scratching it or anything. So there it is. The only thing left is a little something we're going to do to the back. And now the finishing touch. And there you go. So with the lid on it, it is all done. And we'll take a quick tour around so you can see some other things that you can do with a bandsaw. A little Texas clock there. That's walnut. And I like these little Texas shapes that you can make. Call them whatever you want. Paperweight. Different sizes. Some more boxes. I believe that's rosewood. Saw some of these marble wood. Here's some little Texas shapes for desk ornaments, paperweights. These were actually made out of a cutting board that I salvaged. Bamboo, ran it through the planer. And here's some crosses, various kinds of wood. And some of the wife's crocheting. Alright, here's just a quick look at a few other things that have come out of my shop. If you go larger on a box, you can compartmentalize it, which is just a little trickier in terms of the bandsaw work on the inside, but not hard to figure out. Here are a couple of interesting items that came from my lathe. These are called natural edge bowls, and the bark is supposed to be intact on there when you're done. This is black cherry. Here's a bowl that came from a machine called the Ringmaster. Very, very easy machine to use. This is a natural edge bowl made of pecan from North Texas. And if you come across cutting boards, cheaply, buy them. They always make nice pieces of wood. This is a kind of a salvaged cutting board here. This is a piece of black walnut that made a nice larger Texas box. And speaking of black walnut, here is a piece that is actually unique, I think. This is from our sawmill in Indiana. It's just a big black walnut slab that I made a clock out of, and that clock probably weighs 40-50 pounds or so, but it is solid black walnut. And here is another piece of black walnut. This is a lighthouse turned on a lathe, segmented, as you can see. And here is what I think is the most interesting piece of black walnut that I have ever seen. This also weighs about 40-50 pounds or so. This is a sea turtle carved from one piece of black walnut. Here's the interesting thing about this piece, and I know this for a fact because I met the man. The man who carved this was blind, completely blind. He's from Crown Point, Indiana, and his name is Randy. And I'm telling you, you look at the detail on this, and you look at some of the other things that this man has carved, and remember that he can't see, and it's quite impressive. And one last look here. This is my office. These are chainsaw carved black cherry slabs. I believe they're black cherry, and they came from our sawmill. The slabs came from our sawmill in Indiana. I normally carve Bible verses. And if you want to see this sawmill, just go to YouTube, type in Hebron, Hebron sawmill, Hebron sawmill, and you'll see a very, very nice video of that sawmill. This is Jerry Kaifetz. That's me right there. And that's me right there in some wilder, crazier, younger days. And I thank you for watching this video. Hope you learned something from it.